Hello and welcome back to Ramblings of a Mad Guy. How we doing today, everybody? We ballin', we bullin', we debating, we schmabating. Don't say that one too fast. Okay, what should we get into? Let's do something fun first. Like I always love. Well, let's do a quick Teal Swan. We'll keep updated with Teal Swan. What's she on about these days? Our favorite internet grifter, cult leader, all the rest. Let's see. Maybe I should do this instead. Is that better? No, that's worse. How's that? Better? Maybe? Not really? There we go. Okay. Teal Swan. We talked about her a couple days ago. Grifter, cult leader, internet narcissist, psychopath. Let's see what her take is on belief in God. I think I can already anticipate the word salad.
Do you believe in God?
Okay, so God in the way that human beings use that word, no.
What is it to
So
you?
how do you believe
What
in
is
God?
that energy to you?
If you took all
What is that energy to you? What is that energy to you?
energy in the universe, which is imbued with the quality of consciousness, which is the capacity to perceive and also project forth thought, that's even in inanimate objects that you're seeing physically manifested. If you took everything in existence and you looked at the amalgamation of that energy, that is God.
Oh, good. Look at that look. That look right there, by the way, is... Did you guys buy that? That load of horse shit? Okay, let's try to break it down, go through it. I mean, it might be impossible. So God in the way that human beings use the word. I only believe in God in the way that aliens use the word. Which, by the way, she does commune with extraterrestrial beings and being like ghosts and things like that. So I don't use God like you simple humans use God. I use it the way that more advanced ghost species use God. Okay.
Beings use that word, no.
What is it to
So
you?
how do you believe
What
in
is
God?
that energy to you?
If you took all energy in the universe,
Okay, so first, step one. This is what God is, according to Teal Swan. You take all the energy in the universe. Okay, fair enough. Take all the energy in the universe.
which is imbued with the quality of consciousness,
Which is imbued with the quality of consciousness. Okay, so we're talking about some kind of panpsychism. You know, some kind of like... You know, this light is not... It's kind of... It's not doing what I want it to do. This light here. All the energy in the universe. All the energy in the universe. Every morning when Teal Swan wakes up, she perceives all the energy in the universe, which is somehow imbued with the quality of consciousness. So, of course, it includes rocks and, dildos and all sorts of things. Are conscious. Oh, then is it sort of cruel to step on the ground, actually? Should we not use a knife to cut into a pear? I mean, that's kind of torturous if you think about it. Okay.
which is the capacity to perceive and also project forth thought. That's even in inanimate objects that you're seeing physically manifested.
Whoa. Inanimate objects physically manifested. I love you just skip over that part. So inanimate objects are also non-physically manifested somewhere. Fair enough. I mean, if you believe in this kind of platonic panpsychism, that's cool.
Everything in existence, and you looked at the amalgamation of that energy, that is God.
Oh, okay. So just look at the amalgamation of all the energy in existence. So a really long way of saying, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? They were like, do you believe in God? She was like, well, God is something that is truly, obviously, impossible to look at. That is God. Trust me, bro. Source, trust me, bro.
So
And then
it is
the look. Like, you guys bought that, right? Like, that word salad was confusing enough for you guys to buy it? Not so.
consciousness that is the amalgamation of all subjective perspectives that currently exist. And believe me, there's more and more getting created every day.
Wow. Wow, so inspiring. It's the collective amalgamation of all subjective experience together, and there's more getting created every day. So just a little bit of grifter
Do you
horseshit for you
believe in
guys
God?
in the morning. Okay.
A whole litany of stuff there, almost all of which was put to
This is
be
also going to be fun and a little more interesting. Dummy leftist has no idea what the Crusades are. So the first half of this is like them complaining about Pete Hegseth's tattoos, which like if anyone doesn't really know, these are the tattoos. So he's got the Jerusalem cross, pretty badass, honestly. In terms of a symbol, it's like, you know, fighting in the name of Christ. And of course, the Crusaders used this cross, and it's called the Jerusalem cross because I believe it was either like sort of. Actually, no, that's Deus Vult that the Pope. Deus Vult is the phrase that the Pope sort of instantiated for this crusade to defend the Holy Land from the invading Muslim forces. The Jerusalem cross, I don't know the history of, actually. But essentially, it's a Christian symbol, I think associated with defending Jerusalem from invading forces. This is the other one, Deus Vult. I think it means for the glory of God or something. Something to that effect. God wills it. God wills it. Historically used as a battle cry during the First Crusade in 1096. So yeah, I mean, if you're literally a warrior and you love God or you believe in God, Deus Vult it's probably the perfect thing to get. I wouldn't get tattoos in general, personally. You know, it's a little bit like showy. Look at me, you know, with the assault rifle and the American flag. Probably not backwards. I'm guessing that's because the image is like flipped. And I'm surprised people don't comment on that one. Like, do people really just hate Jesus so much that they only care about the Christian symbols on his body? They don't give a shit about the America represented by a gun element of it. This I like. That's great. That is the shepherd's crook, I believe, with the cross, which is an Orthodox symbol. Let's see what's all this about. The Greek tattoo of Pete Hegseth, Trump's Secretary of Defense. The Chi Rho symbol. Oh no, that's right. It's one of the earliest symbols of Christianity. It originates from the Greek word Christos, meaning Christ, and is formed by superimposing the letters Chi and Rho. Oh, so it literally just means Christ. It's sort of like one of the earliest ways to just represent that. That's awesome. The symbol gained significant prominence during the reign of Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. Amazing. I believe, is Constantine a saint? I don't know. We should have to look that up. Constantine saw a vision of the Chi Rho before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, which is what eventually converted him and made Christianity. Well, he later made Christianity the state religion of the Roman Empire, so that's very interesting. That's fun. So, you know, he's got some good tattoos. Cross and a sword with Hebrew. I mean, look, it's a little like edgelord, you know. I come not to bring peace, but a sword. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're not Jesus, right? So I'm not sure you get to claim that per se, but fair enough. I gotta figure out my lighting situation. I'm sorry. What I need is one of those big diffusers. Right now I just have this like harsh LED light. I need like a diffuser light, but I'll figure that out. Okay, so let's see what the slow boy libtards think about the Pete Hegseth tattoos and the Crusades. It's pretty funny.
Liability attached. Where do you sit with this? I mean, it looks like Hegseth is going to get.
About you. That's not common.
Sorry.
That's not common. Not for me.
Oh, what's up, Comic Brandon? Welcome back, brother. How we doing? We're back and we're in business. I had to go away to grow my magnificent beard. That's what old people call this old lady I was visiting, which is why I really had to step away, because like I would go to the hospital at the same time that I was supposed to be streaming. She kept calling this a beard. She said, "Oh, you are growing a beard," but really it's a goatee out of necessity. I can't grow anything over here, so I just do the goatee out of necessity. Goatee. Okay, how's that? That's like slightly better, I guess. Maybe it's all the backlighting that makes it hard. I don't know. Anyway, welcome back, Comic Brandon. I'm sure I know you hate God, but do you hate liberty as well? I'm kidding. But do you hate like conservative politicians, Pete Hegseth, all that stuff? Because if you do, named after the devil's legs. Oh boy, I hope that's not true. I hope that ain't true.
I don't know about you, but that's not common.
I'm not saying for you
that,
or me.
There's a police report where I sexually assaulted a woman and I signed her to an NDA. But
that kind of settlement is not uncommon, is my point. Just generally, in the American system, a lot of things get settled that way without any admission of liability or wrongdoing, which is the case with Pete Hegseth. Michael, where do you sit with this?
Well, so much of what Wajahat just said is not true, or as you point out, Pierce, is completely unsubstantiated, like the allegations that Pete Hegseth shows up drunk to work. Excuse me one second, Wajahat. I've been on that morning show with Pete a number of times. I've been in studio with him a number of times. The only thing you could accuse Pete of is being too alert.
I don't hate gods. I just happen to know they're not real. Right, sure. Yeah, gotcha. Let's skip to the. They're just gonna talk about Pete Hegseth, and I like Pete. Well, I don't like Pete. I like Pete. Well, I don't really care about that. I'm more interested in how they characterize the Crusades, because these two are dummies. They're just absolute dummies. And Dave Rubin's a dummy too, but he at least keeps his mouth shut.
Called him out as an insider threat, not me. His colleague. And I also said, go to his book, read his words.
But just to be clear, you've got
Pete stuff. I am too extreme from the U.S. military. Pete Hegseth's own words. Why are you okay with that, Michael? David, Michael, why are you guys okay with that?
You don't know,
literally in his book, American Crusade.
Yes, Hegseth is a goofy, violent drunk. Okay, I got you, Comic Brandon. That's good. What's your what's the basis of that belief? CNN told me. CNN downloaded their new newsletter into your brain, and then you repeat, or do you have some kind of like information about that?
Hey, he says he's too extreme for the U.S. military.
You don't know, do you?
Oh my gosh! All right, let's look it up right now.
I'd also love to know the names of some of the Fox colleagues.
Don't look it up. Let's go back to Michael. Michael, hang on, Michael. We gave him this chance. He obviously has no idea. Michael, what is the answer?
Crypt Keeper.
This falls along a threat as an insider threat.
I'm going back to Michael now.
2021 pegged Pete Hegseth as a potential insider.
You had 98 chances to answer, and you failed the test.
His speech to military leaders, where he was like, "Don't be a fat, lazy sack of shit." That's your reason. I mean, fair enough. What was in his speech that was so like sort of goofy and violent and drunk? Was he drunk when he was giving the speech? Because that would be problematic. That'd be troubling.
Sorry, I'm going to Michael. I'm going to Michael. Don't talk over each other. Michael.
The tattoo in question is called a Jerusalem cross. That this is a medieval Christian symbol, goes back a long time. In fact, at Jimmy Carter's funeral, there was a Jerusalem cross on the floor of the cathedral, and on the program for the funeral, there's one other tattoo that some have suggested could be extremist. It's the phrase Deus Vult, which is a medieval Christian slogan, a long traditional slogan that refers to God's will, and it goes back a long way. These are very traditional, very mainstream Christian symbols that not only are not...
The Crypt Keeper. All right, let's see. So yeah, basically Michael Knowles just lays it out for us. These are very normal Christian symbols, tattoos, etc. There's nothing... This is the... Okay, Google the Crypt Keeper and look at the person on the right. Oh, I see. that's funny. You're right. Oh my goodness. That is hysterical. This is her. How am I going to infiltrate the minds of boomers all across the country? How will I convince them that every Republican is racist? Oh, interesting. Okay. I think you're right about that. This is the Crypt Keeper incarnate.
Extreme in any way, but which even the people who want to accuse him of extremism couldn't possibly name. That is pathetic.
And as for the cross that you talked about, yes, Deus Vult, which is the cross that he has, and the slogan that he has,
Deus Vult is
an old Christian cross. The phrase, however, was uttered by crusaders as they were slaughtering Jews and Muslims during the Second Crusade specifically.
How would you possibly know that? How do you know what they uttered? Like, is that what she thinks it actually comes from? Like, a bunch of guys were like, Deus Vult, as they were slaughtering people. By the way, defensively, in a defensive battle, as the Muslims were invading Christian lands, right? The Eastern Church requested aid from their Western, and the recently schismatic Western brothers. And, surprisingly enough, glory to God, the West actually responded and sent armies to help them defend their lands. And the motto was Deus Vult. So what's this about slaughtering innocent children and women and stuff like that? If they were slaughtering innocent children and women, then that means that the Muslims would have been sending women and children into battle, into lands to conquer. That doesn't even make sense. Okay.
So it's not just a random cross. It's not just a random phrase.
That isn't true. The phrase. That
it's not true.
It is true. The phrase was uttered.
This guy doesn't even know what the phrase is. What does he mean? It is true. Woodshire. He's like, the Crypt Keeper told me so it must be true. My boss. He's like her minion. He's the Crypt Keeper's. What do they call those, goons? Before that word got co-opted by edging or whatever.
After the Council of Clermont, when Pope Urban II declared the crusade, and it was actually probably Dieu le Vul, but it's been rendered in Latin as Deus Vult.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with slaughtering Jews.
It has
nothing to do with slaughtering Muslims, because the Muslims had invaded Europe, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! Are you really saying that the reason the crusade, which was sent to the Holy Land to liberate the Holy Land, from whom? From Jews?
From the Muslims, dummy. Also, the Muslims were in Europe. I mean, when were they kicked out of Spain? Muslims in Spain until when? I love how they just laugh. Like, they're so smug. This is like the whole leftist, like, sort of, I don't know, it's part of the ideology, but it's their whole, like, posture towards reality, towards, like, the nuance of history, is to scoff and laugh and assume that they're always right. So Muslims were in Spain from 711 when they began their, what is that? Oh, conquest of the Iberian Peninsula until 1492 when the last Muslim stronghold, Granada, fell to the Catholic monarchs. So what's a goon to a goblin? Comic Brandon, I couldn't agree more with you. What is a goon to a goblin? Well, this is a goon to a goblin, actually. This guy in the middle left here, or in the middle right here, is a goon to a goblin. Any one of these people has as much money in the bank as both of us will earn in our lifetimes. Yeah, probably more. I'm going to say more. About as much as we'll ever earn. And the only reason I'm saying that, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know how successful he is. But he seems to be spending a lot of his money on Legos. On life-size Lego figurines. So I'm not sure if he's, like, really investing all that much. And then she's probably, like, a trillionaire, right? She's probably, like, some kind of, like, lizard person trillionaire that came down to, give us the talking points. It's a class war, bud. Those in power will do anything to keep it. Couldn't have said it better myself, Comic Brandon. It's a class war, man. You're abandoning your real brothers to jockey for them. How do you know what side of the class war I'm on? Are you serious, Comic Brandon? Is that your outlook on online? I know you don't say things very seriously, so I get that. But, like, you actually think that it's just as simple as a class war? Are you some kind of communist? You like a Marxist communist? No, there's rich people on both sides of political discussions. There's poor people on both sides of political discussions. There's poor, how do I put this? There's, in terms of class, there's rich and poor people that want to propagate class war. There's Republicans and Democrats that want to propagate a class war. The world is multivariate, you know? It's not just like you choose one thing. It's black versus white. It's gay versus straight. It's class versus underclass. Oh, you're a communist. Okay. This could be good. And I'm assuming you're still not going to come into the Discord and, like, talk. That's my guess. That would be the communist answer, but... We need to seize the means of production and distribution. And then what? What happens when we seize them, and who seizes them? That's the question. So does Comic Brandon seize them? Does... I don't know. Who else is there? Because anyone else that seizes the means of production and distribution is going to have to be a rich person or a powerful person. Because how are they going to seize the means of production if they're not powerful? So who seizes them? Does everyone seize them at once? Well, then how do you make any decisions about how to distribute them? Because everyone has different ideas of what to distribute where. So just a couple questions for Comic Brandon. Who seizes the means of production? And how do they distribute them if you're a communist? Those should be easy answers. I mean, communism has had about 100 years, if not longer, actually, to figure that stuff out. And yet it's been tried multiple times, many times. And every single time it ends up with genocide for the very reasons I'm laying out. Because what happens is the communist leaders feed off of kind of idiots that believe in the communist vision. And they get elected, or they get military power, or they get whatever they get, like widespread support. And then suddenly they are the upper class, what do they call it? The bourgeoisie. The communist leaders are now the bourgeoisie, but they have unilateral control over the means of production. Whereas in capitalism, no single bourgeois has unilateral control over the means of production. In fact, that's antithetical to capitalism. I'm not saying we live in a great, perfect capitalist country. I think our country has been corrupted by socialism so that you get this kind of monopolization at the top. But, okay, both you and I producing our own food and clothing and helping those in need to strengthen our society as a whole. Communism is a global idea and has never been tested. That's authoritarianism. In a communist society, no one person has more power than another, no leaders. Okay, so what happens, like, if I'm better at making clothes than you are, and I get more power than you, like, maybe I'm better, or let's just reverse it so it's easier, so it doesn't feel offensive. What happens if you have more children than I do? Well, then you have more power than I do, because you could actually fight me with your family versus my family. Should we, like, cut off people's ability to have kids after a certain point? Should we force people to have kids until they have the same amount? How do we enforce this kind of, like, idealistic equality of all people? In a true communist society, there's no government, no leaders, no power structure, just humans working for the benefit of one another. Oh, okay. So you're really more like a libertarian, actually. Because communism doesn't say that. Communism says that the proletariat, at least if you read the Communist Manifesto, the proletariat becomes the bourgeoisie. And because poor people are intrinsically more moral and good and righteous than rich people, then they order society in this way, and I'm literally quoting, I'm paraphrasing directly from the Communist Manifesto. Like, I'm not taking anything. So you're more like a libertarian, like an ultra libertarian who thinks we should go back to like an agrarian way of life, which I would probably agree with you. It kind of seems like we're too far from that to be agrarian, but I guess I kind of agree with you. Then the whole squad rides out on me for being an agitator seeking power. That's Marxist communism, and he was working within the framework he understood. So yours is Brandonite communism, and you're working within the framework you understand. But that doesn't mean it's possible or real. And I like this thing where it's like, communism hasn't been tried, man. It hasn't been tried yet. It just, because it's not, because every time it's tried, it ends in absolute utter failure and starvation of millions of people. But that's just because we haven't tried it good enough yet. Well, it's like, how many times do you try a shitty idea before you just give up on the retarded idea that leads to the starvation and genocide of millions of people? Like, do you actually think that the Stalinists and the Leninists weren't devoted communists? Like, what was the thing about them that didn't work? Okay, well, at least you admit it's not possible. It's totally idealistic is the problem. It's utopian, that's the word. It believes, it projects a sort of vision, a utopic vision of the future with no plan how to get there, and also it subverts human nature. So and that's why it leads to genocide and starvation and gulags and imprisonment, because you have to suppress and deny forcefully human nature in order for it to actually work. Which means you have to kill the humans that disagree with it. Well, most humans disagree with the concept of you aren't allowed to better yourself beyond a certain point. Everybody has to be equal and the same. Some people are just more skilled at things than others. Like, if you applied communism to NFL football teams, no one would watch the NFL. If you applied communism to Olympic sports, it wouldn't even make sense. Everybody would get a gold medal? Well, no. Everybody would get a bronze medal. Everybody would get no medal. If everyone was forced to run at the same speed, there'd be no point of anything. So that's why communism, it countervails human nature itself. You know what I mean? Make you a mod so I can post a link. I don't know how to make you a mod. I don't really want to mess around with that right now, but you can tell me you can say the name and I can look it up. It's not human nature to take advantage. No, but it is human nature to excel, to become better. And it's human nature to want more and better for your family and for yourself. And you don't have to take advantage of people. You really don't. But communism says you can't even do that. You can't even not take advantage. Hold on. Sorry about that, gang. I have to. I'm running a show tonight, so I had to talk about some logistics. But okay, so it's not human nature. That's how people are formed in a capitalist society, thereby seeming to be human nature. But 3-year-olds know how to share. You think people don't share in capitalism? Dummy. You know, the absolute most, what is that word for donating to charity? Philanthropy. The absolute most philanthropy happens when people have an excess of wealth. That's like when so I'm not saying it's good to have big monopoly culture, you know, giant Standard Oil and stuff like that. But like every single library in America, which is was set up by the Rockefellers and by the DuPonts and by these big oil barons and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's more sharing in a capitalist society than a communist society for sure, because what happens in a communist society is nothing's shared. It's stolen by the top 1% and redistributed according to whatever their values are. So what happens is it's more stealing in communism. Oh, don't even. That money is just cycled back to the rich people and used for tax evasion. Lol. Okay, so even if it's used for tax to get at, like, for tax evasion as you're calling it, but actually it's a good thing to give people discounts on their taxes because then they will give it to charity. It's not like the poor people don't get that money. It's not like they donate to a charity and then go in and take the money and bring it back. Yeah, you don't understand how this works, bro. They give the money to a charity. The charity gets the money, and they get to pay less taxes. It's an incentive for rich people to donate to charity. Like, what's the problem with that? If they had to pay the taxes, then the money would never get to any charitable cause. It would just be blown on bullshit, on fucking military overspending, on everything else. The top 1% is robbing everyone. I'm glad you have a really, like, high school view of how the economy works. So tell me how the top 1% is robbing people. Just let's break that down. How is the 1% robbing people? I'm sure there are people in the 1% that do rob, but typically you have to make jobs and create wealth in order to be in the 1%. So instead of robbing people, they're actually providing lives for families. A family can buy a house because a billionaire, take Elon Musk if you want. Do you know how many schools, how many children are sent to school and to college, whatever, not that college is good, but how many mortgages are paid for, how many cancer treatments and all sorts, just the things of life that people need money for are provided by someone that makes that many jobs and that much wealth for society. Okay, so the top 1% is robbing everyone. The charity run by another billionaire. Who cares? If the charity is, corrupt, that's a problem, obviously. And there are those. And usually they're NGOs, which are in line with the government, which is who you love if you love communism. But anyway, but I'm talking about a genuine, real charity, or actually doing something physical, like building a library or a hospital or a school or something like that. Sweep through wage theft. All profits are stolen work hours. Okay, you really don't understand how it works then, do you? So explain to me what wage theft is. So I need to hire someone to do a job, say to edit to edit the stream videos. Say I need to hire someone to edit the stream videos. How am I stealing their wages? By giving them money to do a job that they agreed to do. Well, Colin Brandon, I say you love the government as a communist because you're saying everybody needs to be equal and not pursue their own interests and their own well-being above the level that everybody does. But the only way to ever make that happen would to be with an authoritarian government. Because the second I decided, actually, I'd like to make a little more money than $40,000 a year. I'd like to have a little bit more, safety and security for my family. maybe a slightly bigger house for them because it's getting cramped. You know, I've got 4 kids now, not 3. And the government mandate is to only have 3 kids so that I'm not more powerful than my neighbor. But I hid them from the government so that they don't kill my 4th child. But now I need a little more money for my 4th child. Do you see what I'm saying? You need if you want to do communism, you need this like overriding structure to hammer it into people, which is why it causes genocide and starvation every single time. And do you think the Leninists also didn't say the exact same things that you're saying? No, it's about fairness. No, we just need to learn how to share. No, that's not going to be a government. It's not going to be a government like, it's going to be a different thing, man, where we all just work together. That's exactly what the Leninists said before they slaughtered and executed the Tsar and his family and then created the worst society to ever exist on Earth. The most murderous. Who said anything about China? I'm not saying nothing about China. Although China, Chairman Mao is another great example of this, but I never mentioned China one time. I'm talking about Russia, brother. A true communist country for decades. So, yeah, you say you don't like government, but the only way to institute what you're talking about is an authoritarian government. Mr. Beat, communism, socialism, capitalism compared. Oh, is that the video you want to show me? Okay. Communism, capitalism, socialism compared. When I'm talking about limiting childbirth, you're talking about China. Yes, that I was saying you would have to do that in the society you're talking about. In order to make everything even. But you're right. I didn't even think about this. You're right. That is what China eventually led to. So I'm glad you're proving my point that communism is extremely predictable. It has very predictable outcomes that do manifest in the real world. Okay, let's see.
I'm Mr. Beats, and now I'm going to say some dirty words. And...
Funny.
Hey, will you stop censoring me?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Now, capitalism, socialism, and communism.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Watch your language. I am offended.
Anyway, let's first hear what the critics have to say about capitalism.
You're a very, very...
You want to bet that China is not communist? Never has been? I agree it's not now. Now it's like a global corporatist sort of entity that claims communism and still has elements of communism for sure. But Chairman Mao wasn't communist. I mean, okay, sure. But so what was he actually? What was Chairman Mao if not a communist? A monarch? An authoritarian dictator who happened to just use every tenet of communism to gain that authoritarian power?
Successful, very rich filmmaker, apart from everything else you do. In a way, that is capitalism. I mean, you've got a business.
Is it
you
really?
Have a company.
Oh.
Well, isn't it in its purest sense? Isn't it?
What pure? There's nothing pure about capitalism.
Is there not, though? Has it
It's
just
not
been
capitalism.
corrupted?
Unfortunately, over time, capitalism has spun wildly out of control, transforming rapidly from a force for positive social change into a brutal system of oppression that's holding humanity back and destroying billions of lives.
So how many people in contemporary society, let alone across capitalism's long history, die due to this economic system? Capitalism is global, and around the world 8 million people die from lack of clean drinking water. Roughly another 8 million people die from hunger, and
do you realize how much bigger those numbers would be if not for capitalism? Like, instead of 8 million people dying from lack of clean water, it'd be like 80 million or more. Do you understand how capitalism transformed the modern world? Every country was a third world country until the invention of capitalism. Do you understand that? I mean, this is just so silly.
on top of that, another 3 million die from vaccine-treatable diseases. Adding in room for error, let's just take it to a grand...
Everybody that ever got a disease used to die. Now it's only 3 million out of the 7 billion that live on planet Earth. Thank you, capitalism.
total of 20 million deaths per year.
Whoa, 20 million deaths per year? versus the hundreds of millions that would be if not for capitalism. So we should be thanking capitalism for saving hundreds of millions of lives, right? Is that going to be the message of this little clip? I'm guessing not.
Due to the lack of food, water, and vaccines.
So retarded.
Nice. Now let's hear all the great things people have to say about socialism.
Socialism has failed every place that it has been attempted.
How many people under 30 and 40 know so little about the legacy of socialism and the suffering that it's caused? Socialism is grim, it's old, and it offers you no tomorrow.
Socialism is going to win. What does that mean, and what is socialism?
Well, it could win at the polls. That's the problem. It's very intoxicating to people who don't know any better.
Right.
And the interesting thing
rich
about
people, they have too much money.
Yeah. The interesting thing about socialism is that no matter how many times it fails, people expect it to succeed.
Now let's look at the facts about socialism, shall we? Venezuela, a rich country blessed with bountiful natural resources, is now a hellhole.
What happened in Venezuela? They call that democratic socialism, but they don't have toilet paper, and it's less equal than ever.
As we're now seeing in Venezuela,
That's a good point.
all of the promises that the left told us and we warned against now are shattered. People are starving to death.
Venezuela, eh? Okay. What about communism?
Why is communist so much less a term of revulsion than Nazi? Communists killed 70 million people in China, more than 20 million people in the Soviet Union, not including about 5 million Ukrainians, and almost 1 out of every 3 Cambodians. And communists enslaved entire nations in Russia, Vietnam, China, Eastern Europe, North Korea, Cuba, and much of Central Asia. They ruined the lives of well over 1 billion people.
Guevara, in the name of communism, killed lots of people. He said, "We executed many people by firing squad without knowing if they are fully guilty."
Well, why is it that the atrocities of communism are almost completely ignored by our teachers and dismissed as just a blip in history by most? 100 million people perished under communist dictators in the last century.
True that,
All right,
Queen.
then, communism.
Go off, Queen.
So it appears there are a lot of strong opinions about these 3 words, but there is confusion about what they mean. These 3 words have also been weaponized. People often use these 3 words to attack and marginalize others. People misuse these.
What's up? BRB, sir, trying to find the right video. Is this not the right video? This is not what you... There is no right video to defend communism. Communism is retarded. I mean, like, it's pretty simple. I don't know.
3 words. They conflate them with other words. For example, often people seamlessly interchange communism and totalitarianism, or capitalism and fascism, as if they mean the exact same thing.
Which is, by the way, not what I'm doing when I say that communism leads to authoritarianism. That's what I'm saying. Communism invariably, always leads to authoritarianism. I'm not saying they're the same thing. Communism is like a utopic, ideology, which, when put into practice, creates authoritarian tyrants. So.
Dude, you're mixing an economic system and political system, for crying out loud. And there's also this false dichotomy.
There are some, Democrats mostly, who believe socialism should replace capitalism. Do you think that's ever going to happen?
Replace capitalism with socialism? Who the heck is proposing that?
You think that's ever going to happen?
You know what? I'm starting to get a little worked up about this. Let's look at some dictionary definitions of these 3 terms, all right?
Right.
I need a dictionary. Can anybody get me a dictionary, please? Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, now let's just take this dictionary here and look at the definition of capitalism and put that up on the screen, okay? Capitalism, an economic system characterized by private or corporate ownership of capital goods by investments that are determined by private decision and by prices, production, and the distribution of goods that are determined mainly by competition in a free market.
Good.
Okay, so let's break this down. First of all, it says economic system, meaning a way resources get around and the way people trade stuff. By private or corporate ownership.
Very good.
Let's just say private ownership of capital goods. Okay, what are capital goods? Goods used to make other goods. All right, let's go on. By investments. So basically, folks trying to get rich that are determined by private decisions, prices, production and distribution of goods determined by competition in a free market. Okay, let's simplify that. Folks trying to get rich by competing with each other.
An economic system characterized by private ownership of capital goods by folks trying to get rich competing with each other. That's a good definition. It actually sounds like a great system. It sounds like people are actually trying. One, there's a benefit to providing goods to the society. And two, there's a competitive factor that actually makes the system more efficient if it's sufficiently free. That's the problem with socialism, is that it basically wants to keep the good parts of communism but take out the competition. But the competition is what makes it efficient. That's why socialism is just an inefficient version of capitalism, or an inefficient sort of like leech on capitalism.
Everything else is implied, isn't it? If you are competing in a free market, there is no government stopping you when trying to make money. You are making decisions on prices, production, and distribution in order to make a profit, and you are competing with others for customers. This is capitalism.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Capitalism? More like late-stage capitalism. It will die soon, you greedy scum of the earth capitalist pig. All you care about is yourself.
Come at me, bro. Anyway, capitalism has been around for hundreds of years. By the 1500s, it really caught on, and there has been no turning back. A word that has been even more of an insult lately, more so than capitalism, is the word socialism.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. So now you're a dirty socialist? You know, socialism killed 100 million people. I mean, Venezuela? Hello?
Well, crap. We've got 3 different definitions here in the dictionary, okay? Socialism. Number 1, a theory or system of social organization that advocates the vesting of the ownership and control of the means of production and distribution of capital, land, etc. in the community as a whole. Number 2, procedure or practice in accordance with this theory. Okay, then, well, we don't have to really go over this definition then, do we? And number 3, in Marxist theory, the stage following capitalism and the transition of a society to communism, characterized by the imperfect implementation of collectivist principles.
Okay, so a theory or system of social organization that advocates the vesting of the ownership and control of the means of production and distribution of capital, land, etc. in the community as a whole. But what you're not realizing is, or not noticing, is that this already happens in capitalism, in a free market. Especially the more free the market is, the more the community actually decides the means of production and distribution. Not only is everything cheaper, but it's that very competition which the people who produce stuff have to keep in mind, because people have the freedom to buy different products. And it's exactly good for the consumers. It's much better for the consumers. So, I mean, socialism just already sucks. It already, and if you take the Marxist theory version of it, it's even worse. The stage following capitalism and the transition of a society to communism. Oh, so you mean as the society degenerates into something authoritarian and destructive, this is kind of that middle ground? Well, great then. Let's do socialism. Let's do the halfway option between something fundamentally free and open and successful and something authoritarian and destructive and horrible. Socialism for the win. This is so stupid. Characterized by the imperfect implementation of collectivist principles. Collectivist principles just being code word for total control of the government over the means of production.
So first, it's a theory or a system. Why is socialism considered a theory and capitalism not? Probably because it's never been fully practiced. But it is another economic system. But instead of private or corporate ownership, we are talking about the community as a whole as the owners. With capitalism, it's about owning capital goods. But with socialism, it's about owning the production, distribution, land, everything, and everyone owns that.
Whoa, so everyone owns everything? that sounds awesome. That sounds totally realistic and feasible and even possible. Everyone gets to own everything, man. So I own your house and you own my house and I own your swimming pool and you own my car and I get to sleep with your wife and you get to sleep with my wife. I mean, it's retarded. It's completely utopic.
The community as a whole makes economic decisions.
Yeah, so how does that manifest again exactly? The community as a whole makes economic decisions. First of all, pretending that that's different from capitalism is hilarious when capitalism is actually better for that. If that's your goal, for the community as a whole to make their own decisions about the market, capitalism is the way to go. Free market is the way to go. In socialism, for the community as a whole to make all the decisions, that's just code word for the government owns the means of production. And then you just have to trust that the government has your best interest at heart. But obviously the government does not have your best interest at heart. Like, it's so clear. It's so obvious. Especially like if you're like a little kid and you're on a plane to some island in the Caribbean. No. I mean, it's just completely retarded.
Not the individual. Based on that definition, have we ever had that? No, not really.
No, because it's not possible. Because you're going to define away all the times it's been tried and say, well, that doesn't count because it wasn't really socialism, because it didn't have good effects. Well, yeah, it can't have good effects. It's impossible for it to have a good effect. It's fundamentally ideologically flawed at the center. Okay.
Not since farming became a thing, at least. Now, that third definition is the historical definition of socialism, and often leads to even more confusion about what socialism actually means. Marxist theory? Yeah. Socialism, even though it had origins throughout human history, was first articulated by two dudes named Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Get it? Marxist, because it was named after him? To this day, Engels is still mad it's called Marxism and not Engelism, by the way. Anyway, the two criticized capitalism and said it would eventually be overthrown by a new economic system, aka socialism, and
keyword overthrown. Notice how capitalism didn't have to assert itself by military violence, didn't have to assert itself by revolution, and an unnatural will for power of a certain sect of people. Whereas Marxism, socialism, capitalism, has to actually, the only way it will ever be accepted is by violent revolution. And Marx knew that. And if you read the Communist Manifesto, that's abundantly clear. He says we have to overthrow the current system. Well, capitalism didn't have to overthrow the current system. So, not violently, not by revolution. It did so purely by the power of the success of the system, by the intuitive nature of it. Yeah. So, Common Brandon, unless you have an example of capitalism violently overthrowing, I'm arguing that violence didn't get us here now. No, when did I say that? Of course, violence is existent and dominant throughout all of history. I said capitalism wasn't instated by violence. So, do you have a counterexample? Go ahead. No, that it will be overthrown. Oh, it will be overthrown. And so it will be overthrown by the wind, man. Well, earthquakes are going to overthrow capitalism. No, it will be overthrown by people who are followers of Marx. And if you haven't read the Communist Manifesto, I encourage you to. But this is like the main theme. It's a call for revolution. It's not like a political theory book. There actually is no theory. There are no details about how to actually distribute the means of production and who will actually rule the society. It's all to whip people into a frenzy and a rage such that you can cause violent revolution. Okay, so you don't know about the Contras. What, Iran-Contra? What are you talking about, dude? I don't know, actually. What are the Contras? Okay, so something from 1979 to the early 90s. Are you a dummy, dude? I'm talking about how capitalism was instated. It was a political theory developed by Adam Smith, John Locke, These people are from the 1700s. Where was the violent upheaval? This is long after capitalism has died in America, by the way. 1979? Are you kidding? We were a socialist country by then. How every time a communist society tries to do communism, capitalist countries off their leaders to discourage them from trying. Yeah, sure, buddy. Sure. Actually, maybe that's a good thing, because by 1979, we had seen what happens when you just let a communist country run wild, i.e. Russia, i.e. China, i.e. Cambodia, right now Venezuela. If you let communism run wild, it actually means, like, death for millions and millions of people. So you take out a few leaders, I don't have a problem with that, personally. Okay, oh, you mean colonization of America when the settlers murked natives. What does that have to do with instating capitalism? Was that for the purpose of capitalism? No, of course not. Who wrote a book said, if we don't kill the natives, capitalism will never succeed? It started in England. It started in Europe before we ever even not before we came to America. We were probably settling America around the same time. Oh my God, those were authoritarian, not communism. Yeah, but you haven't been listening, bro. Communism always leads to authoritarianism, by definition. In fact, Marx knew that. He knew that that was the case, which is why it would have to be a violent revolution. I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm not saying they're synonyms. I'm saying it is impossible to have a communist society without an authoritarian government ensuring that everything is equal, that the means of production are distributed equally. Well, who distributes them? Do you have an answer for that? Who distributes the means of production? And how do we decide who those people are? Because Marx didn't have an answer. So unless you have a new sort of take on this.
Eventually, communism. Socialism was just a transition from capitalism to communism. Marx and Engels said socialism would consist of everybody owning the means of production and that the workers would control and manage it. By the way, Marx is the reason why we even have the terms socialism and communism.
Communism? Don't even try to talk about communism, you un-American commie. I always knew you were a red. You probably are a spy for the Soviet Union, aren't you?
But I have to give a definition to educate the viewer.
You'd have to do a whole lot more living in a communist society.
Well, not necessarily. So the dictionary says, communism, number 1, a system in which goods are owned in common and are available to all as needed. 2, a theory advocating elimination of private property. Now remember, that's communism with a lowercase c. So, pretty similar to socialism, ain't it?
Yeah, they're the same. Socialism is in between. He's already admitted this, is a transitional phase between capitalism and communism because it doesn't work. Socialism, we have socialist countries, and they usually suffer for the more socialist policies they have, the worse off they are as a country. And once it gets to full-blown communism, then you have this authoritarian element. So what socialism does, it just leeches off the success of a capitalist free market country. And then eventually, if you want to have a fully, equal or whatever it is, a society in which goods are owned in common and available to all as needed, which completely subjective, all as needed? Okay. Well, I need a Ferrari. So communist overlords, can I please have a Ferrari? Oh, but then everyone has to have a Ferrari? Oh, but everyone gets whatever they need at all times, so nobody has to work for anything, so nobody's making anything, so there are no Ferraris? And then that extends to every sphere, like food. Oh, wait, 10 million of us are starving now because everybody's getting everything as needed, so no one has to work? Oh, we need people to work to give everything as needed, so we're going to force you to work. But we can't pay you because that would be capitalism. And we can't pay you a fair wage, and you can't raise your income or compete for a wage. So, yeah, we're just going to need everyone to work for free. But trust me, we'll take care of you. Says who? Okay, non-stamp collector Not personal property, private property. Well, if it's not private, then it's not personal. Because if it's not private, anyone can come and take it. We'll watch Not Stamp Collector and see if he counters me fully. Oh, would your Ferrari be less fun if everyone had one? No, I'm saying, dummy. It's whatever. I'm saying all as needed is completely subjective. So one dummy could say, I need a Ferrari, then suddenly everyone would have the right to a Ferrari. But of course that can't be the case, because there's no production. There's no reason for anyone to make Ferraris, which is why you look at Russia and China in their peak communism days. There's only one type of car, there's only one type of food, there's only one type of every product you can imagine, because there's no competition. And by the way, all those products suck. Ask anyone that's lived in the Soviet Union under the reign of Stalin and the rest of the communist leaders. It was horrendous. It was nightmarish. Okay. I love you too, Comic Brandon. It's good. It's crazy to me that you're still a communist in this day and age, but I appreciate it. And it's fun to argue this because it's actually one of the easiest things to argue. Communism is completely self-defeating, you know? Okay, so non-stamp. I agree, Comic Brandon, but you'll never come into the Discord. I don't know why you'll never talk to me. So non-stamp collector is just one of these like atheists, but he's also a communist. That's so funny. It always goes along with that as well. Like most atheists I know are also communists, or at least I should say all communists are atheists, pretty much, because there's still atheists that have like some common sense politically, so they can see how dumb communism is. But okay, 20th century killers.
That squirrel can water ski. Anyway, now it's time for this week's special investigation segment with Kent. What have you got for us this week?
Good evening, Ray. Well, tonight something very, very special and exclusive. Earlier this week, I was able to carry out the first interview of its kind in the world. Brand new technology allowed us to contact the departed souls of the 3 worst mass murderers of the 20th century: Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and Pol Pot.
Fascinating. You actually interviewed them.
Yes, and I took the opportunity to ask why they did the awful things they did. So,
yeah, weird. People who don't believe God will do it. Understand people have to. You don't understand anything, do you, Comic Brandon? When did I even mention God in my critique of communism? Ever. People who don't believe God will remember that it is communism. Understand people have to. So yeah, if God doesn't institute a violent, revolutionary, authoritarian system, then we have to do it. That's what you just said. That's completely retarded.
that was to finally ascertain the motivations behind their appalling atrocities. Their answer proved to be very, very surprising indeed.
Let's take a look.
Well, let's start with Pol Pot. Tell us about your motivations. What were you trying to achieve?
Well, look, my goal was to establish a system of government based on agrarian collectivism. I believed that the best way to self-sufficiency was to force people into the countryside to be put to work in government labour projects and collectivised farms, organised into cooperatives. It was to be an agrarian communist society with no individual possession, albeit not exactly Marxist, in that I strongly believed that the rural peasant farmers were the true proletariat.
Mr. Stalin, did you...
Oh, interesting. Oh, so he did basically have every view of the Communist Manifesto, Marxist Communist Manifesto, and it ended up with a horrific genocide. Very interesting. Okay.
Similar ideals?
Well, yes and no. My main aim was the liberation of the workers. I wanted to end individual possession and capitalist exploitation once and for all, and I was confident that collectivized agriculture would immediately increase the food supply for urban populations and for the processing industry, and lead to greater agricultural exports. I also regarded collectivism as a solution to the crisis of agricultural distribution that had been developing in my country since around 1927.
Why is it then that when we look back, we see that something like 5% of people did amass wealth and ruled the other 95%? Why did you not, in fact, create an egalitarian state?
Well,
I know what he's doing. I know what you're doing, Comic Brandon, with this video, and I'm still going to critique it like this because the fundamental thesis behind this video I can see is that communism hasn't been tried yet. Okay? These people, Pol Pot, Stalin, the third one that he's going to mention, I can't remember who it was, Mao probably, they were communists. They actually were. And so this whole thing of like, well, you said you were going to be communist, but then you actually became an authoritarian, tyrannical dictator, so you weren't a communist, is a fallacy. It's a mistake. All communism's natural end is the authoritarian dictator. Stalin, if you can read books about this, and we will. We'll go to a video from a very interesting guy about Stalin. He genuinely believed in collectivizing the agriculture. The only way he could do that was by making it happen by force. Same with Pol Pot, as they just said. That's the only way anyone can do it. How would you do it, Comic Brandon? How would non-stamp collector do it? If not by force, nobody wants this society. It's not natural to the human state. It has to happen by violent revolution, as admitted by Marx himself. So, how would you do it?
Look, if I'd had more time, things would have worked out for everyone. My people had complete confidence in me.
Yes, but is that perhaps because you took control of all the media and because you used to have people who disagree with you killed?
Well, everything I did was for the greater good of the people. I did similar things, actually. I eliminated anyone suspected of free market activities and went as far as taking away the children of people who had, in my view, been tainted with capitalism.
Isn't that funny? Everything that I predicted that would happen in Comic Brandon's communist society, taking away kids, collectivizing agriculture, it actually is the common outcome of the ideology.
Pol Pot, history records you as killing anywhere between 800,000 and 2 million of your own people. Who were they? Why did you kill them?
I ordered purges of people who were going to be of no benefit to the new Cambodia. And these included former government officials, educated people, those with ties to the West, as well as Buddhists, Muslims and Christians. My estimates were that only 1 to 2 million people were needed to build the new agrarian utopia, and my stated policy towards the others was, quote, to keep you is no benefit, to destroy you is no loss, end quote.
Let's bring in Mr. Hitler now. Some historians have recorded you as basing your policies upon fierce nationalism in both populist and collectivist terms, national protectionism, Italian fascism, totalitarianism, racism, and of course militarism. Why then did you use the word socialist in the name of your party? Were you in some sense also a Marxist?
I mean, nobody thinks Hitler's a Marxist, so this is just a straw man. Okay, let's go to the conclusion. Like, literally, nobody would ever claim that Hitler is a Marxist, either a socialist or a communist. That's just like a non sequitur added in here, but fair enough.
Mass murderers of the 20th century, thank you for your time.
Wow!
And there you have it. Each leader finally owning up to the fact that they did their evil acts in the name of atheism.
Look, congratulations on getting them to come out and say on the record that everything they did was done in the name of atheism.
Well, as you saw, I just let the three leaders speak, and they just wouldn't shut up about how atheism was the key motive behind all of their actions.
This is going to be a major embarrassment to all the atheists out there. We just heard Hitler saying that the gas chambers were built and used in the name of atheism.
That's what he said.
Pol Pot just confessed to killing upwards of 2 million people in the name of atheism. And Stalin let his people starve to death because of...
What?
Something or other that he did in the name of atheism. What was it again?
Oh, look, I don't know. I wasn't really listening. Since I already knew that every answer was going to be something about their passionate devotion to atheism, I just kind of...
Brandon, are you retarded, brother? What does this have to do with our discussion? Also, they are atheists, and this non-stamp collector took basically maybe 10 quotes of theirs out of context and said, see, they didn't say it was because of atheism, therefore these are not atheists, Christians bad and wrong for hating communism. Dude, I was talking about communism purely from the political spectrum, purely from an ideological side, and it's still wrong. Now you add in the atheistic element of it, of course it's even more wrong. So why did you send me this video? Dummy. This is complete non sequitur. I didn't make the claim that he's responding to here. And I'm supposed to eat my words now?
Switched off as soon as they started talking.
Yeah, well, never mind the details. The overall message was that Hitler, Stalin, and Pol Pot carried out their evil acts in the name of atheism.
Yes, all...
Is he retarded? I mean, actually, I guess he's not. I guess it's just you, Comic Brandon, that are... It's possible. It's possible. the whole time I've been saying communism leads to genocide, and this whole video is about how communism leads to genocide. And I was like confused. I'm like, well, how are they going to counter this? Like, how is this going to prove Comic Brandon's point? Oh, it's not. It's going to prove my point and then make a completely different non sequitur point. So communism is bad both from the atheist perspective and from the Christian perspective. Interesting. Communism really doesn't work ever, does it? Hitler was an atheist, by the way. I can't even, don't even get me started on non-stamp collector guy. This is just going to be low brain, low tier atheism, but they're not even communists for real. They're politicians. Oh my God, they're politicians. So what is a real communist? If they have every view, every vision that Karl Marx puts forth in the Communist Manifesto, which people still quote today as being some kind of book that actually makes sense, then in what sense are they not communists? A politician cannot be a communist. A communist works. Yeah, but you don't understand. Communism is it necessitates a violent revolution, which Marx understood perfectly well. Let's get into the PDF. Let's get into the actual book, because I don't think you've read it if you don't understand how it works. You have to have a political entity, a political force, ensuring that the communist happens, because it's not the natural state of humanity. It never has been. It's completely unnatural to human nature. A worker who sees the wellness of the community as paramount. That's what all these people were before they had to ensure that communism took hold and was the residing principle of the country, which made them into authoritarian tyrants. It's like, it's necessity. Okay. Let's talk about Manifesto of the Communist Party, Proletarians and Communists. Maybe we'll start there, page 41. No, not one of them is a worker. They all were. They all were. That's how they got into. How do you think they got into the party? If the Communist Party is for workers, how do you think they became part of the Communist Party? They weren't born as social elites. That's why they had to do a violent revolution to gain power. Not one ever had a blister on their hands from doing the work themselves, but instead convincing others to do the work for them. Yeah, but that's how communism works. That's what it is. So all these people did have blisters on their hands, Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao, from being normal people, or like working people in the society beforehand, which was usually a monarchical society, or maybe proto-capitalist. They got tired and lazy and sick of working, and then they became communists because communism ensures that you never have to work. You'll just have everything you need magically. I guess some magician, some genie will somehow know exactly what everyone needs and distributes it perfectly. No, of course not. People do that. So only in your mind, I'm a communist. I work for others. Okay. Well, good for you. So what happens if, Comic Brandon, what happens if you get your way in society? Let's lay it out practically. How does it work? What's going to happen to the society to make communism the presiding ideology? In the various stages of development, which the struggle of the working class against the bourgeoisie has to pass through, they always and everywhere represent the interests of the movement as a whole. Okay, interesting. So even when they do that, it leads to this authoritarian tyranny. Oh, weird. So the communists, therefore, are on the one hand practically the most advanced and resolute section of the working class parties of every country. That section which pushes forward all others. On the other hand, theoretically, they have over the great mass of the proletariat the advantage of clearly understanding the line of march, the conditions, and the ultimate general results of the proletarian movement. Oh, so the real communists are the Ubermensches that are better than the other proletarians and can see the sort of long march. They can see the grand vision, which pushes forward all the others. Interesting. Oh, so there is still class division. Oh, so some people are still better than others. It can't be equal, according to Karl Marx himself. And Engels, I guess, if Engels even did work on this. No one really knows. Basically, what I understand about Marx and Engels is Engels was Marx's sugar daddy. Engels came from a very rich family, and ironically, he felt sort of like, what's the word? I'd say ungrateful. Ungrateful for his position in life. And so he got attached. Marx sort of like tricked him or whatever. Just like, I don't know if it was really a trick or just he got seduced by this whole like, oh yes, I have to virtue signaling. That's what the word is. He is virtue signaling. Well, I'm so sorry for being born to a bourgeoisie family that I will fund Marx's attempt to rip apart society from its very hinges. Anyway, the ideology has evolved a lot since Marx. Well, it has to, because this is retarded. This is all retarded. But even if it's evolved, this is the cornerstone. This is what it's evolved from. So the very original thing is completely flawed and contradictory and self-contradicting. So the evolution can't really be much better because it's all started from this corrupt place. Hello, Lily Scarlet. Welcome. I hope life is treating you well. I hope you're selling lots of artwork on Twitch. Unfortunately, I don't need any artwork today, but I appreciate it. Anyway, the ideology has evolved a lot since Marx. I mean, it's so stupid. Capital is therefore not only personal, it is a social power. It's all about power. It's all about, and who needs to have the power? The communists. Remember, it's not about, if everyone in the society just had this power equally, you would need a genie, some kind of magical being, to know what everyone needed and distribute it evenly. Marx understands that there is no such genie, partially because he is an atheist. So he admits that if communism is going to work, it's going to need a sector of leaders who are admittedly smarter than the rest of the working class. So it has a bourgeois-proletariat relationship built into it. It's nearly impossible because capitalism is deeply embedded. Who created the power structure? Capitalists? That's so wrong. Capitalism is not deeply embedded. The most deeply embedded thing in history is monarchism, is monarchy. Capitalism is a relatively new in history. I want to say 1700s, late 1700s, early 1800s invention, a genius invention, which lifted the majority of people on Earth out of extreme poverty. Everyone lived in destitution until a free market was theorized, until capitalism was invented and discovered, really. So, no, I mean, it's just a misunderstanding. And ironically, communism is more monarchical than capitalism, because in a monarchy, one entity controls everything: the means of production, authority over the workers, over the wages, over the products, over the goods, over the foreign, relationships and things like that. It's the same thing with communism. One entity controls all the means of production and then distributes them equally, except they don't know how to distribute them equally because that's an impossible equation to do. The king, at least, didn't even pretend that he was going to be able to distribute things equally. So there was this structure of serfs and lords and things like that. And that was still more fair than communism. because it kind of flowed down in this natural hierarchy of things. I'm not saying it's better than capitalism, but I'm saying it was more fair than communism. So it's nearly impossible because capitalism is deeply embedded. Who created it? Every inch of the planet is owned by capitalists. Whoa, sick, bro. Source? Source for that? False. Definitely not true that every inch of, or not even close to true. I know it's like it's a hyperbole, but it's not even remotely true. Okay, this is great too. The distinguishing feature of communism is not the abolition of property generally, but the abolition of bourgeois property. By the way, bourgeois is just whatever you determine to be bourgeois. So, you know who Stalin determined to be bourgeois? Because the term isn't properly defined anywhere. Stalin determined anyone that made any money farming to be bourgeois. And he put them in gulags. And guess what happened? 30 million people starved to death in Russia. That's what happens when you abolish bourgeois property. Is that what you advocate for? It's just such horseshit. When opposed to the communistic abolition of buying and selling, of the bourgeois conditions of production, and of the bourgeoisie itself. You are horrified at our intending to do away with private property. Yeah, properly horrified. I mean, that's horrible. If you can't buy or sell anything, who gives you your food? How do you get your food and your shelter? Well, the government has to give it to you. But what if the government doesn't like you? Like, for instance, if you're a Christian in any of the communist countries that have existed, well, then you don't get shelter, you don't get food, you don't get anything. What happens if you're a minority or someone that doesn't go along with the party? You get executed. And I'm not like saying like, oh, that's how they did it, so that's true of all things. That's what's written right here in the book. It's obvious. It's self-evident from reading the book. Yeah. Okay. That's probably enough on the Communist Manifesto. Thank you, Lily Scarlett. I'm not interested today. Do appreciate you, but will not be interested in your artwork. Oh, you mean like what we've actually witnessed recently under capitalism? Oh, so how so? Explain that, Brandon. What did we witness under capitalism that's anything like the horror of the 20th century?
Good morning.
Then we'll get into this. Please expand, Brandon. I'm curious. What horrors of capitalism have we witnessed that's akin to gulags, killing people based off of their religious values or worldview? Anything? Anything remotely close? Bare store shelves, people dropping dead from starvation and sickness. No, you're supposed to describe capitalism, not communism. Because when you go to the store, it's chock full of shelves. Very few people in America die from starvation and sickness. Very, very few. Or in any capitalist free market country. Like, almost none. Compared to history, of course. Of course, there are some. There are people that die. A certain proportion of people will be starving and sick. But that's more so true under communism than capitalism. We have the numbers on that. Where are these, I guess another question is, where are these bare store shelves? Like, where are these people who are dropping dead from starvation and sickness due to capitalism? And how does capitalism cause that? I'm just curious.
Morning, everybody.
Yeah, we have countless food programs and shelters for homeless. Thank you, Jonathan. That's a good point. You didn't see a lot of food shelters and homeless shelters in Stalinist Russia, did you? Or Maoist China, or Pol Pot's Vietnam. Is that where he was from? I don't remember. I think it was Vietnam. You really, really don't, do you? Interesting. Thank you for jumping in, Jonathan. I was telling Brandon as well, by far the most amount of philanthropy happens under freer market conditions. When people are not exceedingly, but when people have extra wealth, they're more willing to give that wealth to the poor. Because I think people fundamentally have a good nature. They have a good side to them. So, yeah, it's just kind of silly when people say, like, oh, communism is more fair for people. When every time it kills people a lot more. I'm Lily. You're botting out right now. You're having a bot attack. Comic Brandon, point to me where. I can show you exactly where all these things happened in history under communism. Where are these bare food shelves? Where are the capitalist gulags? Where are the, If you need a source, I need a minute. Okay, go ahead. I'll give you a minute. Try to grab me a source of where capitalism is killing people. And I will take a look at that and we can talk about it. In the meantime, on the second part of the title of this stream, children cannot consent to gender-affirming care. By the way, there's no such thing as gender-affirming care. You have a gender. There's no need to affirm it, even if you take their twisted worldview. For instance, they say, oh, well, you can be born biologically a male, but in your mind you're a female, therefore you are a female. Well, so gender is something that's only in your mind? Then why would you need a surgery to affirm something that isn't biological? Why would you need to alter your biology, like taking puberty blockers or hormones, when the problem isn't biological? This guy's awesome. He's a sign guy. His name is Billboard Chris, and he talks with people, and he's a great debater and all that stuff. Authoritarianism, not communism. Yeah, we talked about that. Whatever. Then why hair plugs and erection pills? Well, but that's not gender affirming. That's just people. That's like cosmetic surgery, essentially. Cosmetic surgery exists, and then basically what people are saying is like, well, I should be able to. How are breast implants not gender affirming care? Because it's a cosmetic surgery. How does it affirm your gender? It doesn't make you more of a woman to have bigger breasts. That's silly. Are women with large breasts more women than women that don't have large breasts? Maybe they're more attractive, but they're not more women. Or they're not women more so, Like, there's just no such thing as gender affirming care. Except maybe the only gender affirming care I could think of would be some type of therapy or like spiritual therapy to help you defeat or battle the feeling of gender dysphoria. For instance, if you're born a man and you feel like a woman, the only gender affirming care I can imagine would be something that makes you feel like the gender you actually are, which is a man. That would be gender affirming care, I suppose, but certainly not a biology, certainly not surgery or hormones or anything like that.
Billboard Chris here. I just left my hotel, which is literally just a block away.
When he was 2, I received a picture text message from my son's mother of him in a pink dress. I spoke out against that, and I thought everything had stopped. On my son's 3rd birthday is when my son told me that his mom bought him a pink dress. And I got down on one knee and I looked him in the eye and said, hey buddy, you're a boy and boys don't wear dresses. And we left it just as that. A couple days went by. I was really, really angry with it. So I sent off 46 text messages to her. No threats of violence. Never has there been any threats of violence to her or my son. And in those 46 text messages, she was able to get a temporary restraining order put on me, which kept me from my son. Fast forward to the court system.
See how corrupt this is? How insane that is? This guy's wife, you know, and I don't know why they're divorced. I don't know if he's the perfect dad or whatever. Maybe something else went wrong along the way. I don't want to put all of it, I don't want to take any responsibility from the father. But, you know, it's a tragic situation. Your wife has this delusion that your little boy should be a girl for whatever reason. Starts dressing him in a pink dress, starts buying him pink girls' clothing. The father, rightly, has a problem with that. And the court system grants a restraining order of a father to his own son when the mother is clearly psychologically abusing the son. It's insane.
System. The judge from Pasadena, California, Judge Harvey Silverman, he ordered a gender assessment to be done on my son.
At what age? How old was
I think Aiden was between like 3 and a half.
What the hell is a gender assessment? Why is the assessment not, do you have XY chromosomes? You do? You're a boy. Huh? Gender assessment on a 4-year-old? I thought I was a leprechaun when I was 4. Do you understand how 4-year-olds think? I thought I was a mermaid when I was 4. Like, literally. I had imaginary friends. 4-year-olds don't know anything about their identity. And yet a judge is sitting one down in a dark room somewhere. And he's going, you're a girl, right, little boy? You're a little girl, aren't you, little boy? And his mom like, come on, honey. Tell the nice man that you're a little girl. Okay. What is this comic, Brandon? World Food Program. What is this? This is supposed to be the proof that capitalism is evil? The World Food Program is an international organization within the UN that provides food assistance worldwide. Like, okay. What does that have to do with anything? Is that supposed to be like communism working? Like, that's not communism. You realize that, right? That's called charity. Excuse me? What is the point of this article? Oh, interesting. Look where all the food is needed. Look where all of the food is needed. Barring like India, which has other problems. They make the claim that 9 million people a year die under capitalism. But you realize that none of these countries are particularly capitalist, right? Like, some of them have capitalist like qualities and stuff, but like the primarily capitalist countries are here, up here, even Russia now, Australia, South Africa. Like, the Western countries are the ones that do have food. So actually what we should do to make this map have 0 blue countries is ensure that all of the countries have Western capitalist values. Then we would have more food for everyone. And guess who's funding the food going to the starving people? The capitalist countries that have the money to send it. This was supposed to prove your point? This proves my point. Dummy. Okay. They make the claim that 9 million people die a year under capitalism? What does that mean, under capitalism? None of these countries are capitalist. Like, barely any of them. Maybe a few have some capitalist tendencies, but they're starving for other reasons, I guarantee you. I don't understand how capitalism causes any of these countries to be hungry. Can you explain that? Also, this is like World Economic Forum. Like, I'm sure... Well, whatever. We won't get into that. You understand, Brandon, that was not a point in your favor as a communist. Also, they make the claim that 9 million people a year die under capitalism. Without capitalism, that number would be more like 90 million or 900 million. You know what I mean? We would never be able to support the number of people that are on Earth. 20,500 people starve to death in America annually. Okay, now compare that to how many people starve to death in communist Russia annually. Ignore what, dude? I didn't ignore anything. I'm saying the experts prove my point. That the capitalist countries are the ones that have the wealth and the excess to actually give aid to the non-capitalist countries. Are you understanding? Are you not getting that you disproved your own point? I didn't say it was a bad source. I said it's a good source. I said I wasn't going to go down the route of the World Economic Forum weirdness. Okay, when we're not. I'm saying that's a good source. You gave it to me. It proves my point, not your point. So I don't think that was the gotcha you thought it was. So let's do a little calculator. So 20... How do I do this? 20,500 divided by 300 million. Actually, I think it's more like 350 million, but we'll just do 300 million. Is 0.00006% of the population starves to death each year. A fraction of a fraction. How many died due to starvation annually in Soviet Russia under Stalin? Uh, 5.7 to 8.7 million people died from starvation across the Soviet Union. I mean, it's gonna be hard to. So I could divide that by 3, I guess. Let's call it 6 million divided by 3. Well, obviously that's 2 million divided by population of Russia in 1930 divided by 147 million. A much, much higher number. Nobody should be starving to death, though. It should be 0, lol. And that is exactly how communism gets slow boy, low IQ people. So if you want the number to be closer to 0, then you should be a capitalist, because fewer people starve under capitalism, free markets. If you want the number to be higher than it is right now, then we should instill communism, because then more people will starve. At the end of the day, there will always pretty much be, like, the reason people in America are starving is not for inability to access food. Like, there are jobs, there are ways to get food, there are food shelters, there are homeless shelters. It's in Soviet Russia, in communist Russia, or China, or anywhere else, the reason people were starving was inability to access food and to work and to do anything to better themselves. But yeah, so this is the utopian quality of communism that, like, suckers in people. They're like, I don't want anybody to die ever from anything ever. Everybody should be perfectly happy all the time. Like, don't you see how that's like fairy tale, like kindergarten logic? Like, we live in a fallen world, comic Brandon. I don't want anyone to die ever either. But I also have a brain, you know? I can also see the reality of nature. You saw the lady calling churches to get food for her baby. They only served their members. What kind of church was it? Capitalism equals exploitation. There's losers built into the equation. Wrong. You have to show me how exploitation is fundamental to capitalism. Actually, capitalism leads to further, like, personal autonomy and decisions. So you can exploit people, but it's harder under capitalism than it is under communism. If communism is instated in any system, then exploitation is very, very easy, because there's only a few people that control the means of all the production and all the goods and everything. So if you want to exploit people, it's super easy. You just steal their shit, which is what happens in every communist country. Define capitalize, to make money from. Is that supposed to prove your point? It has nothing to do with exploitation. In a free market, well, okay, this is what we'll do. We'll save the transitioning for later. I think you need an actual education. You keep watching these videos by, like, low tier, low IQ atheists about how communism not so bad. You need to understand how things actually work. From a world-renowned...
The basic principles underlying the free market, as Adam Smith taught them to his students in this university, are really very simple.
Look at this lead pencil. There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington. To cut down that...
This is not Noam Chomsky, you dummy, but Noam Chomsky is low tier. I agree. This is Milton Friedman.
tree, it took a saw. To make the saw, it took steel. To make the steel, it took iron ore. This black center, we call it lead, but it's really graphite, compressed graphite. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think it comes from some mines in South America. This red top up here, the eraser, bit of rubber, probably comes from Malaya, where the rubber tree isn't even native. It was imported from South America by some businessmen with the help of the British government. This brass ferrule, I haven't the slightest idea where it came from, or the yellow paint, or the paint that made the black lines, or the glue that holds it together. Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions.
Brandon, focus, okay? Obviously, he's not telling you every piece of a pencil. He's not an expert on pencils, okay? He's an expert on economics. So pay attention to the economic points, not the, I don't know where the paint comes from. Do you know where the paint comes from, dummy? Watch, pay attention. Try to absorb the actual truth of this genius economist.
People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to the store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people. What brought them together and induced them to cooperate to make this pencil? There was no commissar sending out orders from some central office.
Mm-hmm.
It was the magic of the price system, the impersonal operation of prices that brought them together and got them to cooperate to make this pencil so that you could have it for a trifling sum. That is why the operation of the free market is so essential, not only to promote productive efficiency, but even more, to foster harmony and peace among the peoples of the world.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We can do the longer version. If you still need convincing, you clearly do. And if you think that pencil was not made by people, one, you weren't listening at all, which I shouldn't be surprised about. You don't really listen, do you? You just kind of assert your opinion, which I'm guilty of sometimes too, so I get it. But it was made by people, because the people either made the machines, or they operate the machines, or they actually mined using machines the graphite. They grew the rubber trees. They imported the rubber trees. They made the paint. Like, people are fundamentally involved in every step of making every product. I'd be surprised if more than 3 people ever touched that pencil by the time it got into a store. Dude, how slow are you? What about the rubber tree? What about the graphite? What about the brass? What about the glue? What about the paint? What about the assembly of the pencil? You're so good. Let's do a Milton Friedman debate, because I think that's going to be better for you. Debate socialist. Oh, debates Noam Chomsky. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at
this,
that.
Professor Friedman, I really thought, when originally, before I ever met you and heard your arguments, that because you're a Nobel Prize winner, you really were something special. I have to say, you haven't even reached A-level economics in this country. I have to be quite blunt about it.
Well, that says something very bad about A-level economics in this country.
I find it very difficult, really, to argue with Professor Friedman, because he's advocating essentially a religion. And like all religions, he has a sort of divine presence, in this case the hidden hand and so forth, and he has the wicked principle, and the wicked principle being governments. And by sort of balancing one off against the other, he can really turn the argument any way he likes.
Japan is a very successful country. Germany is a very successful country, another country where the government has had very strong policies. Or modern France is another case, or Sweden. All of them are ones where the government has succeeded visibly. And it's not enough for you to say the government in a few places has made major mistakes, therefore the government is terrible, because I can provide all these other examples where governments have been very effective.
I think we're all being too polite, because I see why Professor Friedman has become a world figure. He doesn't allow anyone else to get a word in edgeways. He ploughs on with unsupported assertions, which have really got a very tenuous connection. Just here and there, you can just see the tentacle reaching down to a bit of fact.
Well, where are the support? Would you give me a supported assertion, sir?
There must be government intervention. And the condition of the British people has fundamentally changed, despite all our problems. Our people live at a totally different level now. And that could have only been done because of government intervention. So I don't accept your premise at all. I think it's a totally false premise.
I put it to you that the 3, I suppose, greatest economic miracles of the last 100 years in the Industrial Revolution in the United States at the end of the 19th century, early 20th century, same thing in Germany at the same time, and in Japan since 1948, took place behind very high protectionist walls. So what evidence do you have that freedom of imports contributes to growth and employment?
Friedman, your argument is that free trade is always good.
Let me start by saying that I am not in favor of the freedom of business to export and import, but of the freedom of people to buy goods and sell wherever it is cheapest and to sell their products wherever they can get the highest price. Business has no interest. Business is an intermediary between people in their capacity as workers and producers, as investors, and in their capacity as consumers. So the freedom I am interested in is the freedom of individual people. Now, if we look at the history of various episodes as you have done, you've left out some very important ones. You left out the experience of Japan from 1867 to 1897, which was discussed in the film, a period immediately after the Meiji Restoration, when they had complete free trade. They were prohibited by law, by an agreement with Britain, from having a tariff of more than 5%. They had many imports of textiles that destroyed in large measure their hand-loom weaving industry. But the result of a free market was that people were better off both as producers and as consumers. They are better off as producers because you cannot export without importing. To say that you should export and not import is a prescription for denuding a country of its wealth, for transferring it to other people. Exports are the cost that you incur in order to get imports. If you get imports, if you get cheap imports, that benefits people as consumers, but it also benefits them as producers by providing them with raw materials to work with, to exercise their skills on, to use their capital on. The consequence is a higher level of living for everybody in the country. You also left out, I might say, Hong Kong, which has had complete free trade, has had a tremendous rise in the standard of life of its people. Here's a barren rock in which the population has multiplied tenfold since the end of the war, and per capita real income, allowing for price changes, has gone up about fourfold.
So what's your response to that? That like a completely capitalistic free trade, very small, so it's not really a country, it's sort of more like an independent city, has just boomed in terms of economy, in terms of wealth for its people, raising people out of poverty and things like that due to the free market. How do you respond to that? I don't understand. Like, what is this evil force of capitalism when all it does is help people and lift them out of poverty. I agree with you that socialism is wrong when people are able to utilize the government in order to consolidate the means of production, the goods, the money, everything, the capital. That's what's wrong with our current society that you're seeing, is the effect of monopoly over people's free will, free markets to trade and sell goods and buy goods and etc. I agree with you that that's wrong. But you're blaming capitalism for something that it has nothing to do with. You're blaming the free market you're just accusing it of doing the opposite of what it actually does, which is lift people out of poverty, lift them out of starvation, give them the opportunity to participate in society productively, no matter where they start out from. No other system is able to do that, especially not communism.
So there are many examples, I believe, of the great virtue of free trade for both people in their capacity, both as consumers and as workers.
You use an extraordinary line of argument, because what you say, well, people have made mistakes in the past, governments have made mistakes, therefore government intervention is wrong. And the point is that you can get all kinds of examples, as, for example, in Germany, Brazil today, Japan, where in fact governments have been very effective at fostering the development of modern industries. Now, if they were as incompetent, as useless as you say, this would never have happened. In fact, if you look at the Japanese economy, to go back to it, as many big, efficient companies, almost
Brandon,
all of those
up,
companies were founded by the government. They were providing...
You know who owns the monopoly? Atheists. Atheists own the monopoly because atheists run the government. Secularists run the government. There's zero Christian values at the head of our society. Therefore, we have the degradation of society. Oh, the Waltons of Walmart have shut down so many mom and pop shops. Yeah, how do you think they get to do that? Special privileges. Lobbying. They can buy politicians off. You don't think that's the problem? So many people have lost homes and businesses to the Christian family, the Waltons, who hasn't worked in generations. Okay? And how many families have the Waltons allowed to survive? How many people do you think work at Walmart? Do you think the workers at Walmart are slaves? Or do you think they work there because they get a living wage that they can support a family with? Support themselves at the very least. $2.1 million people worldwide, and about 1.6 million in the United States. Never been an atheist president. I guarantee you, we've had quite a few. They all pretend to be Christian. They all pretend to be this or that, because that's how you get votes. For some reason, they think they're going to get votes. If they, like, for instance, if Joe Biden pretends to be Catholic, but he's not Catholic. Okay? He's not Catholic at all. He just says he is. And you know how I know he's not Catholic? Because he's pro-abortion. Yes, I know Walmart employees. They're the #1 EBT users. Sure. Fine. But you're in favor of EBT, so that's actually a good thing for you. Look up what businesses have the most employees on Snap. I'm not saying Walmart has the best, like, hiring or work waging. I'm not saying they have the best practices as a business. And I'm not saying I want there to be Walmarts instead of mom and pop shops. I prefer mom and pop shops. I'm saying there are Walmarts because of socialism and government corruption. That's what I'm saying. It's not capitalism. We didn't have Walmarts in, the 1920s when we actually did have a free market. Catholics are pro-murdering babies. We all know that. Yeah, I mean, I don't really care, but abortion is wrong. If you hold the view of abortion, you are excommunicated. You should be excommunicated from the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is corrupt as well, so they don't excommunicate or speak against Joe Biden or any of these politicians, Nancy Pelosi, all these people that are pro-murdering children. And that's just because the Catholic Church is weak. They're liberal, they're weak. The Pope is an effeminate sort of libtard. So that's why you don't see the Catholics speaking out against Joe Biden and others on that front. So Walmart doesn't pay a living wage, lol. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. I mean, clearly some people do live on it. Maybe I shouldn't have made the strong statement that Walmart pays a living wage. But it certainly supports people living. You see what I'm saying? It's a job, you know. It's a job that goes at a certain rate, all right? So, you know, you're not really supposed to be a 45-year-old with kids working as a cashier at a Walmart. You're supposed to be a 16-year-old who could easily live on the Walmart salary. And Milton Friedman will talk about this as well. That's why you're not supposed to have a minimum wage. A minimum wage is destructive to an economy, and we've seen it firsthand. It eliminates tons of jobs. We would have way more jobs if there were no minimum wage. If Walmart paid a living wage, their employees wouldn't need SNAP. No, if people didn't work at Walmart till they were 45, we wouldn't need SNAP. Okay, Walmart jobs, those are jobs for people that have a few skills. But what you're supposed to do as a person in a society is build your skills up over time. You're supposed to start working when you're young, build your skills up, and have a better job when you're 35 and you need to support a family. That's how it's always worked. That's how it should work. But now what people can do because of SNAP and EBT and all this stuff, they can work at Walmart forever as a cashier and never gain more skills. Just simply work as a cashier, and then the government will take care of the rest. That's what socialism does. It makes people lazy. Low jobs that people would have to do to eat, aka slavery. What are you talking about, dude? Now you're just beyond the pale. Any job is slavery? Sure. Spoken like someone that's never had a job. That's crazy.
Money by the government, they've provided special privileges, and they've had those privileges to this day.
The formula of both of these gentlemen is a formula for the impoverishment of Britain, and particularly for an attack on the consumer. This is the most anti-consumer measure you can take, is a measure to limit imports and protect inefficient industries. I don't know where. Maybe the textile industry should have been destroyed. Maybe it's not an area in which you have a comparative advantage. If it should, there would be some other industry that would develop in which you would have a comparative advantage abroad.
You realize how ironic it is to say that all labor under a free market is coerced? By definition, that's untrue. Who coerces you to do work? Under communism, that's 100% true. You actually must work. You must work the job that your master tells you to work. The master of the economy, the singular entity that controls all the means of distribution. But all labor under capitalism is coerced. That's so untrue. That's completely false. What are you talking about? It's the only system where labor isn't coerced, where you actually do get to choose what kind of labor you're going to do. And if you don't want to live, then yeah, you don't have to work. You understand that life is work, right? That to live is to work. We toil in order to eat. Like, that's what life is. So if you, I mean, it makes sense with your utopic vision that nobody should have to work and everyone should live in the Garden of Eden forever and ever and ever. And I agree they should, but we live in a fallen world. Okay, so I actually acknowledge reality, whereas you don't. You seem to not want to buy into reality. I don't know how old you are, Comic Brandon, but I think you're older than I am, or at least the same age. You should probably learn about what it actually means to be a human being on the planet before you just go around and spout all sorts of crazy shit. All labor under capitalism is coerced. Oh, all labor. Oh, so including the CEO? Oh, including the CFO? Including the upper management? Including the middle management? All that's coerced too, actually. So they have no choice. So they have to be a CEO. They have to be a billionaire because it's coerced after all. That is labor. See how small brain and like short-sighted the ideology is?
Look at the situation in the United States where I know better. What's our major export industry? It's agriculture. Not because of any protection. It has never been protected very much. If you look at the history of Britain, when Britain developed the textile industry in the 19th century, there were no tariff walls.
It is labor, though. Like you just use kind of like ninth grade like understanding of words, like the most basic level of words. Like work is labor. So if you say all labor is coerced, well, being a CEO is a job. It is work. You have to do stuff, even though you've been propagandized to believe that all CEOs do is sit in a big tower and rub their hands together like this and sort of like wave their hands over a crystal ball and say, how do I exploit the most people possible today? This is my job, to make up new ways to exploit people. No, it's an actual job, dummy. It's the chief executive of operations, which means they have to oversee the operations of the company, which is work, which is why they can be fired, which is why they're not a king. It's like, oh, so we figured out the problem. You don't know what labor is. That's a funny bit of projection there. No, they play golf and shake hands. Oh, so you actually are like 14. Like, you actually don't know what a job is. What do you think they're playing golf and shaking hands about? What's the handshaking about? What does that result in? Dummy. You think they want to play golf with other CEOs that they hate and shake hands with people they hate? No, it's because they're doing deals. It's because they're making money for the company to pay more people for the company. You fucking idiot. Boom, your whole worldview just busted. I love when Comic Brandon accidentally makes statements about himself. Yes, overseeing is a labor. It is work. You actually don't understand. Do you think there should be no managers of anything? Like, every Walmart should just kind of be run by the cashiers? Every deli, every grocery store, every Goodwill, there should be nobody overseeing anything, because overseeing isn't work, and so it's actually exploitative to have the job, but it's not a job because it's not work, of being a manager of something. Like, it actually blows my mind that you can live to a certain age, like call it 25 or something, and still believe this. Unless you're like 40, then if you're like above the age of 25, this is untenable that you can still be living this way and not seeing it. So you actually believe there should be no managers of anything. Sometimes I can't tell if you're joking or not, Comic Brandon. That's hilarious. I do think there should be no managers, just proletariat. This tells me that you've actually never had a job. And so tell me if I'm wrong. But if you've never had a job, I could see why you think this. That's why, like, high schoolers, teenagers, college kids love communism, because they've never actually worked a job in their life. So they don't know that there is a value to being able to organize the sort of tier below you at the job. Like, a manager is a real position that does real work, that has to manage the people that do other types of work. And yes, sometimes the manager's work is less physical than the guy stocking the grocery list or whatever, stocking the grocery shelves. But it's still a real job that's extremely necessary. So, but if you've never had a job, I could see why you could think that like a bunch of cashiers could just run around and somehow make a grocery store work. But obviously that doesn't work. Independent contractor, comedian, I resist capitalism. Hilarious. Okay, well, good for you, Brandon. Good for you. Now it makes sense how you can have this worldview. Now it actually makes sense. I challenge you to go to anyone who works a real job and ask them if they think their job could exist without any sort of management. I've worked with Tom Brady. Great, good for you. So they were your managers, by the way. They were your overseers if you worked with them. Actually, it probably wasn't them. It was probably someone that works for them. So you've actually had multiple levels of managers without which you would not have had those jobs. Okay? I shook Randy Moss's hand at work once. Got my kid's mother to give a hug to... You have a kid? You're old enough to have a kid? And you still believe in communism? And no managers? Okay. I got my kid's mother to give a hug to Taylor Swift. Okay, nope, Tom Brady is my hoe. Oh, so you manage Tom Brady. Oh, so managers are good. I was deflating the balls. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, imagine a football team with only players, no coach. How does that work? How does a football team with no coach work? No, just players, all doing different things, no organization, no upper hierarchy. That's how retarded the society you're proposing is. A football team with no coach, no quarterback really even either. No one making decisions at a higher meta level. But okay, I think we got the point today. I could only stream for a couple hours. We did a couple hours. Thank you, Comic Brandon, for coming back. Appreciate you. I would encourage you to reconsider your communist ideals, considering they are retarded. But I get it. I get it, man. If you never worked, you would not have a reason to see how dumb communism is. But you should read some history, and you should listen to some Milton Friedman, as well as anybody else in the chat here. Appreciate you all. Love you all. I will see you not tomorrow. Usually I would stream tomorrow. I'm going out of town tomorrow at about this time, so I can't. But I'll catch you guys on Monday for sure.